music you are hearing right now is, of course, your 2017 National Champions, UCF Knights. I am Chris America, coming to you from cold Orlando, Florida. How you doing? My partner over there is Mr. Sean Daly in the much, much colder Illinois. What's up, buddy?
Not much, Chris. We're in a heat wave. We got the 20s today. Like you said, though, I'm Sean Daly. You can find me on Twitter at Tailgaters Sean, and I'll fight you on Twitter for just about anything. I was getting into it with a lot of these UCF fans, and we'll get to a lot of that discussion as we move on. But where can we find you, Chris? Where can we find the show? Everything like that.
You can find me, Chris America, at Chris Scout Team. Twitter it sucks you in, man. It brings you in, and sometimes it brings the best out of you. A lot of times it brings the worst out of you. But I've had some good discussions this morning. I was talking to some guy named Kyle and Jimmy, and they're people I like having discussions with because even though they disagree with me, I like people that won't call me stupid or a moron because they've run out of points. So kudos to those guys. It's been a fun debate the last week over UCF's claimed national title. I know you're on board, right?
I'll let you speak your piece first before we get there, but I do have to ask you today on, January 7th, if you have a moment of time to talk about this flawed college football playoff, and have you accepted the University of Central Florida as your personal national champion?
My personal national champion, I have accepted that UCF has accepted one of 13 ranking systems that are allowed by the NCAA to crown a national champion. Yes, I've accepted that in the flawed system that is FBS football.
All right. I have not, and there's a few reasons for that. You mentioned one of the 13 rankings allowed. I assume you're talking about the Wolf poll?
That is the one that is crowning UCF as our 2017 Wolf Poll National Champion.
All right, and there's been a few other publications. I know I've gotten some emails from the Orlando Sentinel trying to sell me more papers with the UCF being national champions.
Yeah, I would like to say I don't like that they're pushing it because it's a god-awful product. But hey, we'll take it.
Yeah, I left Orlando like 4 years ago, and they're still emailing me trying to sell me the paper. But there are many, many polls. And this Wolf poll it's all mathematical, but just because it's math doesn't mean the numbers can't be twisted. That same Wolf poll has Memphis as the number 11 team in the country. And if you think Memphis is the number 11 team, you're lying to yourself. There's other polls.
But why do you say that? What was it about that you watched Memphis that says if you think Memphis is the 11th ranked team, you're lying to yourself?
Okay, so
what are we lying about here?
So Memphis lost their bowl game to a 5-loss Iowa State team.
Okay.
They had 2 cracks at UCF. Couldn't win either of those. So
you mean the national title UCF? Yep, that's tough. It's tough to beat UCF.
According to the Wolf poll,
13 times people have tried to beat UCF and couldn't get it done.
Okay. So you think Memphis is legitimately the number 11 team in the country, where other polls like Jeff Sangren is another one of the accepted polls, and he has UCF at number 13, right. And he's got Memphis. Hang on, I got to scroll down a bit. Memphis at 31, which for a group of 5, 3-loss team, that's probably as good as it gets. That's right around where Boise State is. I don't know. It's hard to justify putting Memphis in your top 11. What I really look at here is like the coaches poll. They're pretty good usually with the group of 5 teams, and the coaches poll is 10.
Now, do coaches vote in this poll?
Yes.
Now, stop me if you've heard this one. In any sort of post-game interview with a coach, the media guy says, "Hey, coach, what do you think about this football team? How much have you seen of this football team outside of that?" And the answer from the coach is always, "I couldn't really tell you about that football team because I don't have time to watch football. I just focus on my team and my opponents and everything else." Tell me if you've heard that before.
Yeah, but the guys who play UCF still get to vote in this. And as soon as you start garnering attention, people are going to watch. You're telling me you don't think Auburn watched a ton of film on UCF and, when they thought there was a possibility that they were going to be playing them in a bowl game? I'm just saying, there's a lot of different systems out there. Over the years,
So
there's been like 40 different
so
polls that have been accepted.
let me ask you this then. You said there's no way Memphis can be number 11 because they lost to a 5-loss Iowa State team, right?
You're going to talk about Ohio State and Iowa?
Of course. I mean, how can Ohio State be number 5 if they lost to a 5-loss Iowa team? Is this where you're going to move the goalpost on me?
No, I'm going to say that Ohio State has one fewer loss than Memphis does. They also, that second loss they had was a 1 point, or I'm sorry. So they lost to Oklahoma, a playoff team in there.
Invitational team, but go on.
And we'll talk about that too. But I had a question for you. If Notre Dame, as an independent, scheduled every game that UCF had this year and went undefeated, what do you think the public reaction would be to them trying to get into the playoff?
I think they would be upset about it, but do you think the brand Notre Dame would have a hard time getting in?
I think with that schedule, they would. I think the committee would like to put them in. Notre Dame.
You think a 12-0 Notre Dame
on UCF schedule
on UCF schedule would have a hard time.
So what would Notre Dame's signature win be on UCF schedule?
It doesn't. I'm asking you, like, in all honesty, knowing the politics and branding of college football the way that it is, do you think undefeated Notre Dame with UCF schedule would have a hard time getting a slot in the playoff with 1-loss Alabama, 1-loss Oklahoma, 1-loss Clemson, who lost to Syracuse? You don't think they would be able to usurp any of those teams on just Notre Dame brand name alone?
I think they would probably get in as like the 4. I don't think undefeated Notre Dame on UCF's schedule is the number 1 seed at all. Like that's
maybe not the number 1 seed, but do you think they're in the playoff?
I think they're in, and I think the public outcry would be massive.
Oh, it'd be enormous. It would be enormous.
So then my next question would be, is that good for college football? Should Notre Dame stop scheduling Stanford? Should they stop scheduling USC? Should they stop playing Michigan State and just schedule a week schedule and try to go undefeated? Would that be better for football?
I personally think Notre Dame should be in a conference, and that would be better for college football. I think
better for NBC.
I think that college basketball is a perfect example of how all you have to do is win your conference, and you're in the big dance. Doesn't matter what you do, as long as you win your conference tournament, you get to go. You can go 0 the entire season and win 6 or 7 games, however long your conference tournament is. Probably not that long, probably 4 or 5. And you get to go to the big dance. Has college basketball been ruined by the March Madness tournament?
Again, we're talking apples and hand grenades here. When you have 68 open spots in your tournament as opposed to 4, you can have a little wiggle room there. But I would almost argue that the automatic bid should go to the regular season conference champion. You're telling me the regular season means nothing?
Can we not go to more than 4? Can we go to 8? Can we go to 12? Is there an NCAA run football system that has a 16-team playoff? Or is it 24 teams?
They do 16 for FCS, right?
FCS, I think it's 16 or 24. Either way, it's a lot.
I think it's 16, but no, we're stuck at 4 for...
Well, contractually, we're stuck at 4, but contracts are always meant to be broken. There's always a way out of them.
Yeah, but with this much money involved, the conferences are... Why would the conferences break it? They're making so much more money. I don't know if you've looked at the earnings breakdowns for the conferences, but during the BCS, most conferences were making about $27 million per year off the BCS system. And currently, just this year, the Big Ten led the way. They made $89.5 million from the college football playoff. So people first saying the Big Ten should be upset that like Ohio State got left out. The Big Ten made more money off the college football playoff this year than any other conference.
Right.
In $89 million, as opposed to the last year of the BCS, the Big Ten made 34. They're again the highest paid conference that year.
So what you're saying is expanding from a 2-team championship system to a 4-team championship system made them more money?
Yes, but with how the
Okay, so
contract with how the
so
contract is currently
right,
negotiated between the conferences, between the college football playoff and the broadcast networks, which is ESPN in this case, ESPN pays for the college football playoff as a whole. They don't pay
right.
for 2 semifinal games and a final game. So if the conferences wanted to expand the championship to include 4 more teams, that's 4 more games. ESPN would essentially have those for free because they've negotiated this as a package.
Right.
So until this contract runs up in 8 years, there's no reason. The NCAA and the conferences will not give us free football. It's never going to happen. So we have 8 more years before anything's going to change.
And that's fine. And we'll continue to have this controversy for 8 more years, but that doesn't change the fact that the system isn't broken and that we, as sports fans, demand more. Because you're sitting here talking about money and everything else like that. Do you, as a sports fan, like the way that it is? Or
No,
do you want something that's better?
I want something better, and I've given my my suggestion on Twitter, and what I think is best, and what a lot of people have suggested, is an 8-team playoff. And to accomplish an 8-team playoff, each team's going to have to lose 1 regular season game because it's going to be a really hard sell to add more games in this concussion-conscious society we live in. It's going to be really, really hard to add more games. So you're going to have to lose 1 game. Hopefully that'll eliminate a lot of cupcakes from people's schedules. But
it'll have to. And I agree. I think it needs to happen because, listen, you can sit there as Alabama and say, oh, we have a lot to lose by losing this home game against Mercer. But if you told Alabama you can either have that home game against Mercer or you can have a home game playoff where you get to have a really good football team in a game that matters, in a game that your fans care about, come to Alabama, to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that's going to drive up ticket sales, parking sales, whatever sales are associated with a Alabama football playoff game is like tenfold compared to a Alabama versus Mercer football game.
That's true, but that's only true if they play the first round of playoff games at like the higher seeds home field. And it wouldn't be the teams like Alabama throwing a fit. It would be the teams like Tennessee who won't make the playoff and are losing a home game for nothing at that point. But what I would say is, like I said, 8 teams, the 5 conference champions from the Power 5 go in automatically. And then you have 3 at-large or wild card type bids where one of those must go to a group of 5 champion.
Yeah.
So in this case, it would be UCF this year for sure. And then the other 2 are at-large. They can go to group of 5. They can go to Alabama this year or Penn State this year. And then you get yourself an 8-team playoff. And logistically, like you said, they'd have to work it out where maybe the higher seed plays the home game, or maybe they just do more, games out at Jerry World or something to really make some money.
Tennessee will cry about losing that home game until they get their $10 million share check for not making it to the playoffs.
Fair. That's fair.
Because, point. I mean, that's basically what's going to happen is you're going to make so much more money that every school is going to be fanned out to making $5 to $10 million extra a year off of their media share. So, again, it just doesn't play out. The frustrating thing about this whole conversation with UCF and just like you said with Memphis, the whole frustrating thing about Ohio State and all these conversations we have with college football is they're not conversations we have sanely in other sports. And we're wanting we have these conversations with college football because it's always been that way. But shouldn't we stop and realize college football is just insane? It's insane for you to say to a team, you didn't play anybody, so you don't deserve to be in a playoff. I could make that argument to the NBA the last 7 years that LeBron James hasn't played anybody in his conference. So why does he get a shot at the title? The NBA East is god-awful. It is one of the most atrocious professional sports divisions or conferences in all of sports. And yet nobody says, well, LeBron James doesn't deserve to have a shot at a championship. All 4 or 5 of LeBron James's championships, he only has 3. All 3 of LeBron James's championships are null and void because he shouldn't have even been in the playoffs because he didn't play a tough schedule.
Well, it's not really here nor there, but Adam Silver has recognized that, and they are talking about doing not just like a realignment, but just the top 16 teams make the playoffs. They're tired of having a team, 10 games under 500 in the East make the playoffs when you got someone 10 over in the West who's sitting at home.
And that's the imperfection of of professional sports with divisional winners automatically get in, but it's still a much better system because we know that the playoffs, a true playoff, will take care of all of that for us. Like the NFL playoff, it will take care of the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, people said, oh, they were kind of up and down. We were not so sure, but they were still good enough to be considered a playoff team. They were still good enough to have a shot at the Super Bowl. And last night, the Tennessee Titans took care of that for us. We didn't have to sit here and argue about whether or not Kansas City deserved to go to the Super Bowl or whether or not they deserved to go to the AFC Championship game. The playoffs took care of that for us. It removed all argument. It removed all doubt. Next week, Tennessee's in it. Tennessee's going to go play. Who are they playing? Are they playing the Steelers or the Patriots? I didn't see what seed they were. Either
I think
way,
Tennessee was the last team in, so they'd be playing the Patriots, I believe.
They'd be playing the Patriots. We can sit there and argue all day that Tennessee doesn't belong because they had a really crappy up and down season. And what did they end up with? 8 losses or 7 losses? Were they at 9-7?
7. Yeah.
Yeah. So a 7-loss team gets to play in the Super Bowl. How absurd! But we don't care about that anymore because we have a playoff that will take care of that for us. If Tennessee makes it to the Super Bowl, nobody's going to sit there and argue about their strength of schedule or what ranking they should be in the power rankings by ESPN or what they do to deserve it or how there's no way they could beat the Patriots. The spread says the Patriots will beat them. Well, guess what? We'll get to settle it on the field next week. Tennessee gets a chance to prove that they do belong in the playoffs. Or the Patriots get to prove that, no, you don't. We're still the Patriots. We're still the best team in the country. And we're going to send you home and go to the AFC Championship for the 8th year in a row.
Yeah, and just one quick NFL note there before we circle back to bring this to our big argument. Marcus Mariota has more playoff touchdown receptions than Odell Beckham. So let that sink in.
That's a great stat. Only at Scout Team Sports and College Tailgaters. We bring you the hard-hitting stats.
That's right. He also didn't go on a boat before the game. So, but the college football playoff system is flawed. I think everyone can agree about that. But it's the system we have. So claiming a national championship, to me, it's like asking for your participation trophy. You can have a great season without being champion. I mean, there's a game that's being played tomorrow night, this Monday night, correct? What's the name of that game?
It's called the College Football Playoff National Championship. It is again one of 13. You say the college football playoff champion or the college football playoff system is flawed, but what's more flawed is the NCAA crowning of national champion is the one that's flawed, and in that flawed system allows 13, which college football playoff is one of 13 that is allowed to create a national champion. Now, the real reasoning why you and I give more stock into the college football playoff is because ESPN and these conferences spent hundreds of millions of dollars to tell us that this is the end-all, be-all championship.
Yeah. So have you bought your Tulane 1998 national championship shirt yet?
My boy Memphis Spence, he's going to do some research for me. I'll research myself. If I see that there is a poll in 1998 that is recognized by the NCAA to say that they're a national champion, I'll buy a Tulane national championship t-shirt. Just like I'll buy a 1973 Alabama national championship t-shirt where they lost their bowl game to number 2 Notre Dame.
Now that championship, and Alabama is the worst offender of claiming championships. Right. The one you're talking about when they lost to Notre Dame, that championship was actually awarded before their bowl game.
Right, of course. It was awarded the way the NCAA says it's allowed to be awarded. Just like the NCAA, again, is allowing this to be awarded. Everybody's mad at UCF. Don't be mad at UCF. It's like me coming across a $50 million briefcase, and I get to claim it because the law says I get to do that, because finders, keepers, losers, weepers, right?
A possession is not the law.
Yeah, don't be mad at me for claiming $50 million. I didn't earn the $50 million. I didn't get the $50 million. But hey, guess what? I have $50 million. Whether you believe I deserve it or not doesn't change the fact that I now have $50 million into my bank account.
Now,
so we're all mad at UCF. Don't be mad at UCF. Be mad at NCAA. Be mad at the fact that the NCAA had another chance in 2014 to get this right. And instead of doing the right thing and creating an actual playoff, all they did was create a BCS on steroids. And they allowed 13 people to come in and give us a made-for-TV playoff. They really, it's an invitational. Ohio State's the best team in the best conference this year. There's no arguing that the Big Ten is the best conference, unless you want to say that the SEC is undefeated and bowl games that they cared about or mattered. Then I guess the SEC is 4-0 compared to the Big Ten 7-1. But the reality is the SEC is 4-5 in bowl games, while the Big Ten is 7-1. Any playoff that does not include the best team from the best conference is not a real playoff. It's just asinine. Forget UCF. I think the AP poll voters should vote Ohio State as the number one team. And why not? They proved it on the field this year. They've beaten they've beaten more bowl winners this year. They've won the best conference, and they destroyed USC, another Power 5 conference team, in their bowl game.
Everyone was talking, so the Big Ten, I've been a big hype machine for them all year, but the narrative going into this year and throughout the entire year until the bowl season was how weak the Big Ten was. So in hindsight, people are like, wow, Ohio State, only 2 losses in the Big Ten. They lost by 31 points at Iowa. No team in the top 4 should lose by 31 points ever. They got blown out by Oklahoma. I agree. I think, and I've said it many times, Ohio State, when they're playing to their best capacity, is probably a top 2 team in the country. But they also have one of the lowest floors of any of those top 10 teams, where they have the ability to lose to just about any team on the field. So I think they were too inconsistent this year to be rewarded with a playoff spot. I think that they could beat Alabama if they lined up against them on a neutral field in a championship game. I think they could beat any of those playoff teams, but they also have the ability to do what they did to Clemson last year and get just absolutely blown out.
This is, again, where I just start, and it's nobody's fault. It's college football's fault. This is what we were raised on. We were raised on this mentality that because we don't have a playoff, this is what we have to resort to, is we have to come up with reasons why we come up with sports reasons that don't exist anywhere else. If the Patriots win the Super Bowl, nobody's going to say the Patriots don't deserve the Super Bowl because they got blown out in Miami to a god-awful Miami team, to Jay Cutler on a Monday Night Football game.
Primetime Jay Cutler.
Primetime Jay Cutler. Under the lights. The Patriots are so inconsistent. They don't handle. They're so up and down. Their floor is so low. It's just one Saturday does not define your whole season. It doesn't define whether or not you deserve to be in a playoff. And again, it's the only place in the entire world where we think this way is in college football. And I think it's time for college football fans to start realizing that if the rest of the world doesn't see sports the way we do, then we are the ones that need to change, not the other way around.
It's tough, though, with such a small playoff where, even if you go to 8, the regular season games are still going to matter. You're going to have 2 lost teams from Power 5 conferences left out all over the place.
Right. But you'll still have the 5 Power 5. You still have the 5 Power 5 champions. And you still
but what if you get a lame duck like Florida, in all their SEC championship games? What if they manage to pull one of those out when they're a 4 or 5 loss team?
Well, like I said, I would not be opposed to having, just like you have bowl eligibility qualifications, you have playoff eligibility qualifications. Like maybe the floor is 8 or 9 wins for the season. So if you win your conference at 7-5 or 7-6, then no, you're not allowed in. Maybe we'll take another at-large bid from one of those better conferences who have teams with better records. But it's
records to me aren't end-all be-all, because then again, you could get into, unless you mandate a certain amount of conference games necessary, then you could get teams playing Delaware State again to try to get in.
Again, we can all talk about how we can perfect the college football playoff. We can have a whole show about what needs
We got
to be
8 years to
done.
discuss it.
We can have a whole episode, a whole 2-hour episode about what we can do to predict it. But right now, our conversation is how dumb the system is right now, and how ragging on UCF for taking advantage of the dumb system is the wrong way to do it. Like, you need to rag on the NCAA. You need to rag on the Power 5 conferences that, if you look at how they set this thing up, they set it up for themselves. They didn't set it up for fair competition. They didn't set it up for anything other than, how can we ensure that a BYU that won a national title, I think in 84 or 85 with Steve Young, how do we ensure that a school like that doesn't win it again? How do we make sure Boise State doesn't get close to winning a national title like they did in 06? And then, as you can see, each ranking system, each week with UCF as the college football playoff ranked UCF, they just kept them at a distance. They kept them at a large arm-length distance away from the top 10. You had teams like Mississippi State with 3 losses jumping over UCF after they beat UMass by 11. How does that happen if you're not making a concerted effort to keep UCF away? If you ask me, this college football committee and this college football playoff is a made-for-TV sporting event, and it's closer to the way The Bachelor defines, or the way The Bachelor finds true love, than it is anything else to do with finding a true champion.
Yeah, I think the reason there's so much outrage this time around, and why everyone's talking about burn it down and all this, this is the first time there's really been controversy in the Twitter era, where everyone's opinion matters and everyone can get loud on the internet and get a few retweets. I mean, Marshall went undefeated in '99. There was no outrage about how the BCS needs to change because they didn't get the championship. But now that everyone's opinion matters so much, we're getting all this, like I said, burn it down, not my champion, all that.
Yeah, nobody cared about Marshall, but when Auburn went undefeated, people were all up in arms. When USC got the AP national title, which again, if the AP were to vote for UCF to be the national champion, they can, and they will be the AP national champion, and you will have the same exact thing that you had in 2003 with LSU and USC. And people can be all angry about how I don't like co-champions and there shouldn't be shared champions. And guess what? I think UCF fans agree with that. I think you agree with it. I know I agree with it as a Florida Gator fan. But that's not reality. Reality is that the NCAA allows there to be co-national champions still. And again, the AP poll is much more known than the Wolf poll because you know about the AP. The AP is $1 million industry. It's an entity that everybody knows. It's a big time business is the AP. That's why we know about the AP. That's why we think the AP matters. But it still doesn't ignore the fact that the NCAA recognizes other polls as national championships. I don't like it. You don't like it. And like you said, until they come up with a real playoff, this is the system we have. And I don't blame UCF for taking advantage of that system. And the thing I love most about it, and people can say it's the wrong way or the right way, it doesn't matter. It's the way. If UCF on Monday comes home, celebrates their Peach Bowl win, and just goes on to recruiting trail, are you and I or Dan Patrick or ESPN or Rich Eisen, are any of those guys talking about UCF?
Oh, absolutely not.
So UCF now has created such conversation. If you didn't know about UCF before Monday, you definitely know about UCF now. And I don't care what anybody thinks about whether it's right or wrong. If I'm an AD and I'm a president of a school, my job is to make my brand known to the country, and UCF has succeeded in that. If you don't like it, that's fine, but you can't hate on it.
Yeah, credit to them. They are going all in. They paid the coaches the national championship bonuses, so they're going all in for this. But yeah,
T-shirts being printed out. We got a parade today at Disney, and I think that's pretty funny that ESPN, the little child of Disney, is hosting this college football playoff while Big Daddy Disney is hosting a parade for UCF to celebrate their national champion. Yeah,
it's a broken system, but it's the system we have right now. I don't buy UCF as my national champions. I do buy them as my Peach Bowl champions. Like I said,
cool.
great season for them.
And you know what? That Peach Bowl championship is a created, non-sanctioned game, just like this college football playoff championship game is.
Yep, and they won that one. But they, yeah.
So UCF can be the Wolf Bowl champion. I think there's another poll out there that I saw that if Alabama wins, for some reason, it'll make UCF the champion of that poll. If, by miracle, the AP says, you know what? We're a business too, and we want to be recognized as the national championship people, and we want to be our own entity. If they go out and say UCF's our national champion, guess what? UCF will be the AP champion.
Yeah, it's a good way to sell some papers, get some clicks. There's been
a
lot of places doing that. A lot of these smaller papers that have crowned UCF national champion.
Why not?
It's a shrewd business move. I like it.
I will say whoever wins on Monday night will be the college football playoff champion. And UCF will be whatever poll champion that they give. And I'll always say them as such. Now, we'll sometimes, just because this is what we do, we just say they're the national champion. Like, I don't say they're the BCS champion or whatever. But until then, until the NCAA sanctions something, at the end of Monday night, Alabama, Georgia, and UCF will all have the same number of NCAA football national championships, and that number will be 0. And there's no arguing or disputing that.
Yeah, and I don't think we're anywhere near the NCAA coming to a conclusion where they actually crown, a champion, have a system in place for that.
They can't, and they don't want to. If you're Alabama, you don't want an expanded playoff because your brand makes more money off of winning national titles than it does off of whatever media share. So we talked about Tennessee or Vanderbilt getting an extra $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do you think Alabama's getting right now every time they win a national championship and they get to sell more national title shirts and they get to go to their boosters and say, hey, booster tickets just went up a little bit because we're now 17-time national champions. It behooves them to keep it at a 4-team playoff. I said to Girls Beer Sports, they're big-time Kentucky fans, I said, John Calipari and Kentucky would love it if they got gifted a Final Four every single year just because they're Kentucky and they have 6 new first-round picks on their team every single year. There's no doubt in my mind, Kentucky, if college basketball did what college football does, Kentucky would have 6 national titles under John Calipari right now. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Then Duke, Coach K would probably have, 10 to 15 national titles if in his 30-year career if college football or college basketball worked the way college football does?
He'd still probably choke and fake a heart attack or something.
Oh, stop.
Fake an injury.
Guy's won 5 national... Is it 5 or 6? He's won a lot in 30 years in one of the hardest playoffs to win in the entire world.
I say keep your eyes on him as the FBI investigation continues.
We will, but that's another conversation for another day. All right, I think we've talked it out. I am now ready to talk about the made-for-TV Bachelor College Football Invitational. Monday night's game.
Championship, right?
Yeah. Invitational Championship, yeah. It was great to see that Oklahoma, Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia got the Final 4 roses from the producers of the show. Those are the ones that they selected out. And we had hell of a game between Georgia and Clemson, Georgia and Oklahoma. But Clemson, Alabama was a snooze fest.
Yeah, that Rose Bowl was maybe the best one since Texas and USC, which could be the best college game I've ever seen in my life. With, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lindale White going up against Vince Young. This was right up there in terms of entertainment value. And then, going from the Rose Bowl into the Sugar Bowl that night, what a letdown. And that was so prototypical Alabama, just to control the game from start to finish. Clemson didn't look like they belonged on the same field. And we got what everyone wanted, right? An all SEC championship game.
Yeah. One of the best tweets I saw from last Monday night. Was it Monday night? Anyways, it was New Year's. Yeah, Monday. Sorry, when the holidays roll through, it's hard to keep track of which day is which. But yeah, Monday I saw a tweet that said going from the Rose Bowl to the Sugar Bowl is like going from Metallica on stage to Nickelback.
Yeah,
And
was
it
hard
was
to
so
stay up
true.
and
And
watch
it
that.
was what's that?
It was hard to stay up and watch that game. You're so emotionally drained after the Rose Bowl, and then it just such a letdown.
No, I made the executive decision. I had a long day at work the next day. Work's always busy for me when we come back from a holiday. So, as boring as that game was, I had to make the executive decision and say I'm going to bed. I got to get some sleep. And when I woke up the next morning and saw it was 24-6, I'm glad I made that decision because had I stayed up till midnight or whatever time that game ended at, I would have beat myself up the next day for staying up just to watch such a boring and awful game. And it was typical Alabama football. It was the Alabama football game that we haven't seen in quite some time, where it's just let's really hit them home defensively and then just be smart with the football offensively.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's how Nick Saban draws up that game. It's exactly how it would go in his head. I don't know if in his head he'd give up 6 points, but it was pretty much exactly according to plan. I did watch the whole game, unfortunately, and yeah, one of the most boring games I watched all year, and I watched a lot of Illinois football.
Yeah, you lucked out because you're in the central time zone. I need to get out of this eastern time zone where games end at 12:30, 1 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but it does set up, like we said, the all SEC championship game, and I think it's a fairly interesting game. It's not going to be as exciting as if, say, Oklahoma were going to make it and we could see like 50 points or something from one team. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both of these teams are extremely similar. They do a lot of the same things very well. Both teams are led by the rushing attack on offense. They got like that three-headed monster in Georgia. But I think each team also has maybe even a better run defense. So it's going to be strength against strength the entire game. And they got Alabama right now is, I think, 5.5 point favorites. And that's been moving around a little bit.
Yeah, before we go on to that game, we sort of glossed over the Oklahoma-Georgia game, which was a very, very, very entertaining game. It's a game that surprised me because if you told me the game would have gone to a shootout, I would have told you Oklahoma wins hands down because that's Oklahoma's wheelhouse is high-scoring shootouts. I also said on Twitter that if Oklahoma jumps up early on Georgia, the game is over. And that's what it looked like happened. And I got to give it to Kirby Smart and Georgia. I've been very critical of Georgia and Kirby Smart because I want to see more. And I will now admit that I was partially wrong all season. Kirby Smart and Georgia showed me more in that game in that they could come back against a very good team and beat Oklahoma in a game that, like I said, fits Oklahoma's style of play. What did you think about Georgia's comeback? What did you think about Oklahoma's play calling on that last drive of regulation and in the 2 overtimes?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma, some questionable coaching decision with their play calling down the line. They got out to that big lead early. They were up 31-14 at one point right before the half. And to not be able to squat on that lead was pretty surprising to me. But Georgia, they played well. Like we said, Sony Michel had a great game, 181 yards on only 11 carries with the 3 scores. Jake Fromm did exactly what he needed to do. He was efficient with the ball. He didn't turn it over. He had the 2 touchdown passes, just a little over 200 yards. I questioned if Fromm was going to be able to play under the bright lights as a true freshman, and he showed that in a game that's outside their comfort zone that he could be successful. We'll see how he fares against an Alabama defense that is drastically different than an Oklahoma. I would even hesitate to call what Oklahoma has a defense. But yeah, I was just as surprised as ever in that Georgia could mount a comeback like that behind their offense that hasn't typically been a high-powered offense.
No, they created a lot of mistakes defensively on Oklahoma's side of the football, and they just, man, you can't say enough about that 3-headed monster in Chubb, Michel, and Swift. I had a lot of fears about whether or not Oklahoma could handle that, and it looked like in the first half they did okay stopping Georgia's offense. And then once that second half kind of came in and they got the momentum, man, Michelle, Swift, and Chubb just ran over that defense. And then, like you said, Fromm was able to make the plays that he needed to make. He had a very underwhelming game statistically. I don't even know if he eclipsed 200 yards passing. I know towards the fourth quarter he was at like 150, 160 mark, somewhere around there. But it was all of that running game and that monster defense that held Oklahoma's offense in check. The final drive, when they're at the 50-yard line for Oklahoma and there's 50 seconds left and it's 3rd and 2, I did not get the play call at all where they pretty much ran everybody deep and made, why can't I think of his name right now? Made Baker Mayfield throw a 50-50 ball in the air. I know as a Big Ten fan, you hate that call because you'd rather see 15 tight ends and 60 offensive linemen with 3 fullbacks and just run it up the middle, right?
I mean, 3rd and 2, if you can't trust your offensive line to block for you to get 2 yards, or I mean, even something simple like a little rollout where you have Mayfield's an athletic quarterback.
Right.
You give him an option to like throw something short to a tight end or a wide receiver on a cross, or maybe run and reach that ball forwards and get the 2 yards. It reminded me a lot of the Michigan play calling at the end of their game against South Carolina, where they had a couple of 4th and shorts at the end of the game, and they threw 55 yards downfield. It just made no sense to me.
And I thought that was I thought that was one of the bigger differences in this game was the chess match between Kirby Smart and Lincoln Riley. We have 2 brand new coaches. One's in his first year. The other's in his second year, but one was a defensive coordinator at a championship-winning team over the last 6 or 7 years, however long he was the defensive coordinator at Alabama. And the other one he's 33, 34?
Mm-hmm.
Brand new to college football, was an offensive coordinator before. I think he was with Stoops for maybe a year or 2, but he wasn't around for very long. And I felt like when the crunch time got going, he wasn't making play calls that were normal to what he normally does. And I felt like, especially in overtime, he took the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands and went very conservative, and I didn't understand it at all, why he went that way, why he went the conservative route when you have gone all season long with your bread and butter being attack, pass the ball, let Baker Mayfield make plays, and be creative with the football. And it just kind of turned into more run up the middle. They sort of went Georgia's game plan, and that fits right into Georgia's hand because that's what they play defense against every week at practice, and most of the time against the SEC is, hey, you want to run the ball up the middle? That's our wheelhouse. You do that to us.
Yeah,
I didn't understand getting away from spreading the ball around like they did in the first half.
You're right, especially in overtime of a game of that caliber, you have to give the ball to your best player, and that's Baker Mayfield. You have to let him make the decisions. I mean, in a playoff game in overtime, Tom Brady's not handing it off 3 times in a row. You'll never see something like that.
No, you won't see Drew Brees or Tom Brady or any of those guys.
Yeah. The play at the end of the game, like you said, the long ball, the flip side of that coin is if Georgia stacks the box and Oklahoma gets like a guy behind the defense, Lincoln Riley looks like a genius for throwing deep on 3rd and long.
No, of course.
Regulation. But the overtime play calling was what really kind of sticks in my craw. You take the ball out of your best player's hands. I don't know. For me, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I live and die by Baker Mayfield at this point in the season.
Right. My problem wasn't so much that they went deep on it. It was just that was his only option. As soon as he snapped the ball, he looked over at that receiver and just threw it up. There was nobody running underneath. It's 3rd and 2. Like you said, have at least a tailback or somebody there for him to dump it off to when he looks and he sees that it's a 50-50 ball. Don't throw that 50-50 shot. I don't care if you're Tom Brady or not. I mean, obviously I trust Tom Brady to make that throw a lot more, but it's still a 50-50 ball. And on 3rd and 2 with 50 seconds left in a college football playoff invitational, I don't know. I just don't like that play call where I only have a 50% chance of succeeding, where if you roll out or you look and it's not there and then you see your running back out in the flat, give it to that guy and let him make something happen.
Yeah, definitely questionable. And we'll see how Lincoln Riley can bounce back and what they can do next year without a Baker Mayfield on that team. But yeah, hats off to Georgia. great game running the ball. And he did eclipse those 200 yards, 210 for the game, and he was very efficient, exactly what they need to do. And if they can play like that, if they can run on Alabama, they'll be in the game. But that's where my question is for them, if they can actually move the ball.
So you're a diehard Big Ten fan.
Yes.
You're true blue, grew up with it, right?
Yep.
All the traditions and everything. How weird was it seeing Oklahoma and Georgia in the end zones with the little Rose Bowl emblem in the middle of the field?
Oh, I didn't like it at all. And I know it's scheduled well in advance that it's a playoff game, but you had Ohio State and USC playing in the Cotton Bowl when you had, like you said, Oklahoma, Georgia in the Rose Bowl. It upset me. It hurt a little. I mean, the Rose Bowl, it's the granddaddy of them all. So much tradition. It stung a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm happy it was a good game.
I mean, it was a better game than what the Cotton Bowl was. And
not by a lot. The Cotton Bowl might be the second best bowl game of the year.
You're talking about USC versus Ohio State?
I just liked how much Ohio State kicked the shit out of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was a pretty boring game, to be honest. I mean, if you like watching one team dominate the other team, then it's pretty fun to watch. But other than that, it wasn't competitive at all. And that's, again, not to jump back and beat a dead horse, but the Rose Bowl and the influence and power and money that they have on college football also keeps us from having a true traditional playoff, because they don't want a playoff. They don't want that granddaddy of them all football game to turn into a Peach Bowl or a Citrus Bowl. They don't want to have their bowl game be viewed as that.
Yeah, if the Rose Bowl ended up as part of the playoff and they got in the first round like UCF versus, I don't know, maybe like who finished like ACC, like Miami. If they got Miami and UCF, I mean, come on, that game wouldn't travel well. The Rose Bowl would lose a ton of money.
I don't know about travel well. I think Miami and UCF traveled quite well. I mean,
to LA?
To LA, yeah, why not?
Miami wasn't
Georgia
even
traveled well.
home games this year.
Yeah, that's true. Miami's a bad example. They don't travel well anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. That's what the Rose Bowl's big fear is. They get two programs like that. And UCF, they did sell out towards the end of the year, a game or two.
Hey, we packed out that UCF packed out that Atlanta Dome. Now, granted, that's the difference between an 8-hour drive to a 2,000-mile drive. But, yeah, no, I don't think any playoff game will have a hard time filling out stands. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a terrible, terrible franchise history. They have no history of filling out that Jacksonville stadium. Even in November and December, I listen to some Jacksonville radio sometimes, and they were even complaining about how Jacksonville wasn't showing out to these games. The game today against the Buffalo Bills will be sold out. People like winners, and winning cures all.
Yeah, well, they finally took the tarps off those seats in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And sellout, they are donating over 2,000 tickets,
which is awesome. But I think they could have sold them if they wanted to.
Probably. I'm all aboard Jacksonville. I'm definitely jagging off. I want them to win.
Now, just so I can that quarterback, he's from what school again?
Yes, he is a UCF Golden Knight.
No, they're not Golden Knights anymore, man.
No, just Knights.
They have just Knights. They haven't been for years. I don't get why, but
were they Golden Knights when he was there? Could be.
No. I think they got rid of Golden Knights when they opened up their new stadium and they switched all their logos and everything.
All right.
That's also when they got on ESPN for calling them Central Florida. They're like, we want to be called the UCF. I don't know. It was all weird to me. But let's get back to the playoffs. Who do you got tomorrow night in the College Football Invitational?
Oh, which game? The championship?
Yeah, the Invitational Championship.
Okay,
game.
The championship game. I think
right,
that Georgia will not be able to move the ball as well. I think they'll get some movement rushing the ball, but I don't think it'll be as prolific as they did against Oklahoma. I think Alabama wins this game and claims yet another championship.
I agree with you. If Oklahoma would have won the game, the matchup between Oklahoma and Alabama would have looked a lot like Clemson last year with Deshaun Watson and Alabama. This year, when Nick Saban plays against teams that are run-first teams his defense is designed to build that. This is what his defense sees all spring long, all summer long, and all week throughout practice. Is they see this run first, heavy, control the football type offense. So his defense is ready for this. Now, I can make the argument that Georgia's defense is as well, but I will trust Nick Saban over Kirby Smart. I think Nick Saban is now 10-0 or 11-0. I don't know if it's 10 or 11, but it's around there against his former assistants. His latest victim was Jimbo Fisher earlier in the season. I think Kirby Smart will be hard-pressed to be the first one to win. I won't be surprised. It's why we play the football games. And I'm hoping Alabama wins just because I hate Georgia and I don't want to see them win a national title.
Yeah, the coaching edge definitely goes to Alabama. I think the quarterback edge does as well. If both teams are going to struggle to run the ball, I think I trust Jalen Hurts more than Jake Fromm, even though Fromm has proved me wrong all year long. I think Hurts has more of an ability to take over a game, especially on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think Alabama wins this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's very similar to the Clemson game and you get another 23-6 type game where it's just thoroughly dominated by Alabama.
Yeah, Chubb, Swift, and Michelle, they definitely give them a very solid chance to where it doesn't matter what Alabama throws at them. These guys are just legitimate running backs. I will be looking for them next year on my fantasy football. Obviously not Swift because I think he's a freshman or a sophomore. But Chubb and Michelle, I will be looking for them in later rounds in my fantasy football draft to see what team they're on and everything else because these guys are legit. And Georgia is known for putting running backs into the NFL.
If Georgia wants to win the game, it's going to be mostly Sonny Michel, I think. I think Chubb is an extremely talented runner, but Michel's the home run hitter, and they're going to need the home runs against Alabama. They're going to need him to break a 50-yard touchdown run because if they try to run 3-4 yards of play, you're not going to win that game against Alabama. So they need a home run or two, and I think Michel's the guy to do that if they want any chance to win this game.
Now, there's a lot of people complaining about it being an all-SEC championship. I think Alabama and Georgia will have a lot of people watching. What do you think the ratings are going to be on Tuesday? Do you think this will be comparative to other college football invitational championship games? Or do you think there'll be less because the rest of the country just won't be interested? Are you buying into the fact that because it's an all-SEC championship game that the rest of the nation won't be interested? Or do you think there are people who just love college football and will consume it anyways?
I think the ratings will be down from what they were last year, but I don't think that's because it's an all-SEC championship. I think it's because it's a more boring game. There's not as much star power. When you have Deshaun Watson trying to unseat, evil Nick Saban in number 1 Alabama, I think people want to see that, and people knew that Clemson had a real shot at that game because of Deshaun Watson. I think there's, like I said, not as much star power in this game. Most people are expecting both teams to primarily run the ball the entire game, and that just doesn't make for as good a TV as, say, if Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield got in. So I think the ratings will be down. I don't think it's because the whole UCF boycott the playoff and not my champion and all that. I just think it's not as interesting of a game as it could have been.
Yeah, I agree. I've gone back and forth as to whether or not I'm going to watch it as a protest, but I think I'll watch it. I have a love-hate relationship with the NCAA football. It is my favorite sport. I don't want people to think that it's not. But there's lots of things that I hate about the NCAA. The way the players get paid is one thing. The fact that I don't get to play NCAA football on my Xbox anymore is another. And the way they do their playoff and the way that we all talk about college football as a whole frustrates the hell out of me. But overall, the football games, watching these athletes play, is why I love college football. So I think my love for watching college football, my love for watching these athletes play against each other outweighs my frustration and hatred towards the politics and the money and the BS that surrounds college football. So I'll probably be watching tomorrow, and I'll be rooting for Alabama, one, because I don't want to see Georgia have a national title, and two, hey, if I can get one other poll that says UCF's a national champion, then roll damn tide.
Yeah, it's I'm definitely going to be watching for sure. Once the game starts on TV, the pageantry and all that is just incredible. I don't know if you saw that picture floating around from the Rose Bowl. The overhead stadium shot with the B-2 bomber flying right over it. Someone took the picture from above. It's a packed stadium. It's a beautiful field. It's going to be a fun atmosphere for the game. I'm just hoping the product on the field can live up to all the hype.
I'm hoping for a 35-28. I don't want to see run 3 yards and then punt. I want to see Michelle gash for 40 and then sets up a touchdown pass over the middle. And then I want to see Alabama come back and have Hurts scramble around and find somebody out in the open after he made 3 people miss. That's the kind of football game I want to see.
I certainly hope so.
So, real quick, we got about 4 minutes until we're at an hour. After tomorrow, man, it'll be really hard pressed to talk about college football. We did say that we would do a series coming up for our fans. We won't stop talking about college football. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the preseason top 25, and we're going to break them down 5 teams at a time over the next 5 weeks and see how did the preseason polls do. We're sitting here arguing about who should be in, who should be out. Well, let's look and we'll grade the top 25 preseason and see how their opinions mattered and how they held up to real life. And see how they did. But then we're going to roll into college basketball, man. Can you believe we're 2 months away from March Madness?
I can't wait for March Madness. I've been watching more football than basketball, obviously, so far. But I have been watching all my Illini games. And I think for March Madness, we're also going to be doing a bracket challenge online. People seem to like our Bowl Mania on Twitter. Got a lot of discussion going. So we'll have to open it up to the listeners again for March Madness bracket. But we had a crazy...
Did we have a winner for our college football bowl mania thing?
Not yet. There's 2 people in contention, and we can't see who they picked. So if they both picked the same team, Obviously we have a winner. But it's coming down to our buddy Clayton over at BSR, the Basement Sports Report, and I believe it's one of his listeners. We reached out to him on Twitter. Was it like Jay Judge or something?
Yeah, Jay Judge. I think he's at Insider 582 or something. So
I'm
going to reach out to whoever wins. I'm going to reach out to whoever wins and see if they want to come on the show, and we'll crown them national champion. They'll be the college football tailgater Bowl Mania national champion.
I like it.
We'll make them a T-shirt or something. I don't know. I won't go that far, but it looks like college basketball is heating up. We won't talk too much about it, but last night and the day before, we got Colorado upsetting number 4 Arizona State on Thursday. You got Providence beating number 5 Xavier yesterday. Let's see, Colorado beat number 14 Arizona.
That's right, 2 big wins for Colorado.
UNC and Virginia, the 12th team for UNC, got beat by 8 Virginia, 61-49. LSU takes down Texas A&M, number 11 Texas A&M by 1 point. This is why we play the games, guys. This is why we don't sit there and say, oh, Texas A&M is ranked number 11. I guess there's no need to play unranked LSU. Because there was just upsets all over the place. Number 17 Kentucky lost. Oh, yeah, Duke lost to NC State by 11 points.
Yes, and Grayson Allen only scored 8. It was a great game.
Yeah, so college basketball is heating up big time. And I can't wait for March Madness. My Gators have finally found a winning way. I think we're undefeated so far in our SEC schedule. So I can't wait, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we got Michigan State standing there at number 1, representing the Big Ten. By far the most balanced team in the country. I just read somewhere, and it's true, that their 5th best player is their best NBA prospect, is how balanced of a team they are. So look out for them. Ever since they lost that opening game to Duke, they haven't lost a game since. And I think Bridges is probably the only threat to Trae Young at Oklahoma for Player of the Year. Trae Young keeps it going for Oklahoma. He's averaging a double-double with like 29 points and 14 assists or something. A lot of Steph Curry in him. He's a smaller guard, can shoot from anywhere in the gym. It's an exciting season. There's a lot of fun players to watch.
Yeah, I'm looking over the scores from yesterday, too, and it looks like there's a lot of offense being played in college basketball right now. I know usually college basketball is anywhere between a 50 to 70 point range game, and there's a lot of 88 to 84, 100 to 90, 89 to 76, 80 to 77, 81 to 72, 88 to 77, 96 to 85. That you don't see that much in college basketball because of how the shot clock is and the 20-minute halves. So looks like a lot of offense so far this year in college basketball.
Yeah, there's been an emphasis on some rule changes over the last 5 years or so that do benefit the offense because that's what plays on TV. You don't want to tune into. I remember years ago, I went to an Illinois game back when I was in school, and they played Penn State, and they lost that game to Penn State at home, 39 to 32, and it was
Yikes.
like the worst experience of my life. I don't think they scored until like 10 minutes into the game. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So they know that's not what plays on TV. So, but yeah, the offense is back. It's fun to watch. Lots and lots of good talent. And I think my hot take for basketball this year is Javon Carter on number 6 West Virginia. He's the new Perry Ellis. This guy looks like he's about 100 years old. I'm pretty sure he's been playing there since the 90s. But yeah, they keep winning games. They just beat Oklahoma in Morgantown.
Yeah, and it's going to be an exciting basketball season. I'm excited to take on the new challenge of doing a college show without our love of college football. It's going to test our mettle, man, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's I'm pumped for it as well.
All right, that's our show. We'll see you guys again next week. Hope you guys have a happy new year. Enjoy tomorrow's Invitational Championship game. I know I'm going to. Remember, guys, it's just sports. There's no need to be all serious and everything else. We love you guys, and see you next week. Go Gators.
Go Illini.
See ya.
Later.